it how technology has changed our lives, and there's a lot of benefits, even when it comes to parenting. So we see a lot of toddlers right now, especially, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, playing with tablets, playing with smartphones, and they're very, very good at that. But could it also be distracting them from education or hindering their development? We're going to be talking about that right about now on the show. Joining us on the phone is an education expert and the founder of Nutmeg Education. John Modica is on the line to talk to us about toddlers and technology. Hello, John, and welcome to Kababayan today.
Thank you for having me.
Let's first talk about this question. Is new technology beneficial to children?
There's obviously so much that's beneficial to children, right? And I think the overarching problem that we see is that the children are spending a lot of time on it, and parents really don't know what's meaningful time on these devices and what's not meaningful. There's plenty of studies that suggest that children are learning faster, more complex things at a more deep level of knowledge. But the question is are there any really problems that come along with it? It's absolutely undebated that it's good. It just the subtle nuances are what we're trying to figure out.
Could there be disadvantages to this? Could these gadgets be distracting our children from education? Could it be hampering the development of their brain, perhaps?
There's a lot to it, but I think, and we could get into a lot more detailed things, but I think it's a lot of the most basic principles actually apply and are the most beneficial to understand. And the one area that we feel is really lacking, the largest amount of harm, is really the amount of wasted time that goes into a lot of gadgets that don't, or a lot of apps and software that don't really connect with what's going on in the classroom. So, for example, say, this is a very realistic situation. I'm sure a lot of people have had this experience where they buy their child's math app, right? And yet in class they're learning the same mathematical concepts, and yet in a very different way, and that's conflicting with a teacher's instruction, right? Maybe the students are going too far ahead on their own, on their apps, and then they're misbehaving in class because they're bored. They've already studied these topics. So, like I said in the beginning, it's undebated whether it's good. There is a lot of benefits to technology. The amount of use, that's still up for say, but the biggest problem we have is how do we connect technology, all the software, all the apps available, to what's going on in the classroom in a meaningful way, and not in a way that says, Mrs. Fogarty, who's the math teacher, this is where your students are. But how do we get Mrs. Fogarty involved with the interaction of all the data and all the learning that goes on with these apps? How do we keep her up to date without sort of hindering her ability to teach the rest of the students?
Yes, John, with that said, are there apps or games on tablets or smartphones that are more beneficial to children compared to the others?
Absolutely, absolutely. And, again, this comes back to the teacher. We really feel like the teacher should be the one that helps guide a lot of this. So one of the things we do at my company, Nutmeg Education, you can learn more about us at nutmegeducation.com, is we actually direct students to different resources based on how they're doing. So let's give a very tangible example. Say your son is in 4th grade, right, and he's learning about double-digit multiplication, and he takes a quiz in class, he does some homework that day. Well, what he does is he does that all on Nutmeg because the teacher has built those quizzes and homework on Nutmeg Education. And then what we do is say, hey, Johnny, based on how you did, you're not very good at this specific type of math problem. So here's this free video on YouTube that'll help you. Here's this game on this math game website that's good for you. That way it's directed by the teacher, right? So the student wasn't getting those apps out of nowhere. They got that app or that game or that video based on how well the students did their own quiz. And then what we do is we take all that data and we send parents reports. We say, okay, Johnny's father, your child is struggling with this. This is the information we sent him, and this is how he's doing now.
Okay, you mentioned that explanation about 4th graders, and I've been mentioning toddlers. Is there a difference, or should we approach different age brackets the same way? So for toddlers, for example, are there more beneficial apps and games compared to others?
So yeah, that's a difficult question. Most of the apps available today are not made for toddlers per se. So toddlers are usually, we define toddlers somewhere between 1 and
5.
2 to 3.
Yeah.
There's not that many applications made for the 1 to 2 year olds. Where you really see a lot of apps and games are starting around the 3rd to 4th grade, or I'm sorry, 3 to 4 year olds, which is sort of entering preschool, early childhood. That's where you see a lot of development going. And as far as approaching it differently for different ages, absolutely. And it's really more appropriate for developmental levels rather than just ages, right? It's not everyone at the same age is at the same level. But yes, we should absolutely be approaching it differently. At a younger age, children need more guidance on what apps and games are appropriate for them. But these are simple things that I think most good parents know about. But obviously children need a little more direction, a little more facilitation at a younger age. And then as they get older, they're capable of making more decisions about which apps are right for them.
Yeah, let's talk about one final question here. Parental monitoring and support. How much of that should be involved with a child's use of a gadget? Say, for example, a child, how much time should a child be allowed to be spending on a tablet or on a smartphone?
I think the best rule of thumb is really there's a certain point where the tablet's going to accelerate what they're doing, how they're doing it, how much information they can take in, and then there's a point where it's just it's excessive. And really, that point should be determined by a simple question: is if you didn't have the tablet and you were learning the same thing, would you learn it faster? So if we're working on, say, learning trying to find the area of a triangle, right? So something like a lower middle school concept. Well, there's going to be some great videos, other formulas, and then there's going to be a point where it's going to take a little bit of more individualized, hands-on practice. So every concept and every grade and every age, it's going to be different. But I think if your guiding principle is, does the application actually benefit versus doing it the old-fashioned way? And if your answer is no, then that's simple. Then don't do it. It should only be as a supplement. It shouldn't be taking over anything. It should sort of be an add-on in addition to.
Yeah, so technology and children for entertainment and for information and for education as well. Thank you so much for joining us today on the show, John.
Not a problem.
For more information, look them up on the web. That's information on the screen. Meanwhile, when we return on the show, we have a Kababayan performer for you. Don't go away.